Thank you for turning on and tuning in to this episode of Musings from a Small Island with your host, Saul Luckman. Musings from a Small Island is my new podcast inspired by my forthcoming memoir of the same name. In both podcast and book, my goal is to provide an artistic take on the world and the situations that affect us all, while serving it up with equal parts irreverent humor and wide-ranging philosophy of a generally optimistic nature. If you'd like to learn more about Musings from a Small Island, as well as my other books, I invite you to subscribe to my irregular newsletter at www.crowrising.com. By doing so, you'll also gain access to a treasure trove of free content, including complimentary online versions of at least 2 of my books. I also encourage you to follow my blog, Snooze to Awaken, Resources for Lucidity, at www.snoozetoawaken.com. There you can stay in the loop daily of what's really going on this insane awakening planet we call home. Speaking of waking up, my award-winning novel, Snooze, A Story of Awakening, is serialized as an audiobook on my blog. So, sweet dreams. Finally, on whatever venue you find yourself listening to this podcast, please take a moment to hit the follow button and give it a like if you like it. Hello there. This is Saul Luckman. I'm coming to you live, well, for me anyway, on Sunday, February 6th. And this is another episode of Musings from a Small Island, my podcast that got put on hold. I got really busy with a lot of work and just a lot of just craziness in my life and in the world, obviously, towards the end of 2021 and into January, I could just push the delete button on that month. In some ways, it was just a wild ride that went nowhere. Anyway, but I'm back in the saddle, and I have some things I would like to share. I would like to just update anyone out there listening to this to start with on some of the projects that I have going on. I'm working with an amazing reader named Teresa, who's she's Canadian, and she's very perfect for the part that she's reading Callie the Destroyer for the audiobook version. We're hoping to have that finished by March, at least the project completed from a recording standpoint, and then we'll be bringing it out. So maybe by the end of March, that will be available, and I'll keep everybody in the loop. That's very exciting, because I think it will bring the story of the fallen goddess and of Callie and her journey to a whole new audience in a whole new way. It's very it's just very well done from the standpoint of the reading. So I'm happy about that, and I'll keep you in the loop on that. I'm also still working on Musings from a Small Island from a formatting standpoint, and I'm hoping to bring that out before the halfway point in the year. So maybe by around June that will be available. And that's a memoir that I wrote mostly in 2019? I think so. I think that was the year. They're just blurring together as I get older. But anyway, it's just right on the cusp of the pandemic. So that's an interesting piece of timing right there. And it's almost like, now looking at it, it's this idyllic window of time before the proverbial shit hit the proverbial fan. And it's very interesting. But I was already addressing a lot of issues having to do with compliance and the control grid, the war on consciousness, lots of things that have just blown up in our faces since the start of 2020. So that the book is relevant in many ways to what's going on, but it's also a kind of humorous bit of escapism with a lot of art in it, and I say escapism kind of into a more innocent time, at least for me, and maybe readers will feel that too. There's just a kind of lightness about some of the subject matter, even though there are some heavier moments in the text as well. One of which has to do with the loss of of a family member um, several years ago to suicide, and that was very, very intense for myself and my family, and that's I tie that into my own experience with shamanism and shamanic healing, and my own spiritual path through serendipity, through doubt and hopium and real optimism and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that, as well as sharing a lot of my art in the context of telling the story. So stay tuned for Musings from a Small Island, which is the name of my book, as well as this podcast.